They say love fades with time, but what if there's a way to rekindle the spark, to see each other as strangers and lovers all over again? After 10 years together, our marriage felt like a quiet routine, a shadow of the passion we once had. But one unexpected proposal, just one, changed everything. Therapy, secrets, daring new games. Each step took us deeper, past the familiar, into a place of wild rediscovery. Will we find our way back to each other? Or have we gone too far? Join us on this journey, where love is redefined and desires are laid bare. It's strange, really, how the familiar can feel so foreign. Ben and I have been together for over a decade, yet somewhere along the way, the spark that once electrified every glance, every touch, seemed to fade into routine. I look at him now and feel a strange distance, as if he's become a stranger who somehow wears the face of the man I once loved so effortlessly. I catch myself wondering when this happened, when the warmth between us started feeling buried beneath layers of predictability. Did he feel it too? Or am I the only one caught in this silent drift? Our intimacy, well, that's a different story altogether. We used to move in sync like an unspoken rhythm, each touch igniting something deeper. Now, it's like that spark has been replaced with mechanical gestures, as if we're going through the motions. Lying beside him at night, I often feel an ache that goes beyond loneliness. It's an emptiness that whispers of everything we once had, everything we seem to have lost. There's this hollow space between us, a space I yearn to fill but don't quite know how. I'm left with memories that linger like shadows, echoes of moments when a simple touch was enough to set me ablaze. A part of me craves change, something to break this silence between us, to bring back the thrill I still remember so vividly. But how? Every idea feels hazy, like a dream I can't quite grasp. And yet, there's a flicker of hope that somehow we could find our way back to each other. I can almost see it, the chance to rediscover him, to see him with fresh eyes and feel that rush of connection again. But as that thought settles, it's followed by doubt. Would he even want the same? Or have we drifted too far? One evening over coffee, Helen, my closest friend and a relationship psychologist, noticed the restlessness in my voice. I hadn't meant to let it slip. My frustration, my longing. But there it was, spilling over as I tried to put words to what had been weighing on me. She listened intently, then gently suggested something unexpected. Therapy. Her tone was calm, and she offered to guide us through it herself. No judgment, no pretense, just a safe space where we could try to find each other again. Therapy. At first, the word felt heavy, almost like an admission of failure. I lay awake that night, wrestling with doubts. Could something like therapy really help us? Or would it only widen the distance I felt growing between us? But Helen's words lingered in my mind. Therapy, she said, wasn't about giving up. It was about peeling back the layers, rediscovering what lies underneath. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what we needed. After days of hesitation, I finally gathered the courage to bring it up with Ben. My heart raced as I watched his face, searching for a reaction, bracing myself for a rejection. But to my surprise, he didn't resist. He just nodded, his gaze softening as if he, too, had been carrying this quiet yearning for something different, something more. It was the first sign of hope I'd felt in a long time. A glimmer that maybe he felt this emptiness too, that maybe we both wanted a way back. Preparing for our first session, I felt a blend of nerves and anticipation. There was a quiet thrill in the idea of sitting down, stripped of the routine and pretense, to rediscover each other in a way we hadn't dared to in years. Helen's calm assurance gave me the courage I needed. I trusted her to lead us without judgment, to help us untangle whatever lay hidden beneath the surface. I held on to the hope that this wasn't just another attempt to fix things, but a step toward seeing each other anew, as if for the first time. As we settled into the quiet, comfortable space of Helen's office, I felt a mixture of relief and tension, unsure of what this first session would bring. Helen, as always, got straight to the heart of things, asking us about our intimacy. How often, how fulfilling, how truly connected we felt. Her words cut through the air, raw and direct, and I could feel my cheeks warm with embarrassment. But beneath the flush of discomfort, there was a strange sense of liberation. Here in this room, maybe we could finally speak truths we'd kept buried. What took me off guard, though, was Ben. When he began to speak, his words came slowly, hesitantly, but with a raw honesty that struck me. He admitted to feeling neglected, as if our relationship had become just another item on a checklist, a part of the routine. His words hit me, peeling back the layers of tension I hadn't even realized I'd built up. For the first time, I saw his frustration and longing laid bare, and a knot tightened in my chest, realizing just how much he'd been holding back. Listening to him, I felt something stir, a deep understanding that this wasn't just my struggle. He was lost too, just as much as I was. Our feelings of distance, of unspoken dissatisfaction, mirrored each other. It was painful, almost too raw, but there was something else there too. A shared yearning, a quiet, fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, we could start to bridge this gap. Helen encouraged us to be honest, to confront those feelings we'd both been sidestepping. Her questions, gentle yet probing, brought a curiosity to the surface, nudging us to go deeper, to rediscover each other beyond the everyday roles and routines. And as the session continued, I felt a flicker of excitement, an anticipation of where this might lead us. It was uncomfortable exposing ourselves this way, but in that discomfort, I sensed a hint of promise, as if we were finally beginning to unravel the layers that had kept us apart. In one of our sessions, Helen surprised us with an idea she called reconnecting through play. She explained that maybe we'd fallen into patterns that dulled our connection, that perhaps what we needed was a way to break free from the usual scripts. Her suggestion was simple yet intriguing. A series of games designed to stir up that spark we'd lost, exercises in role-playing that would allow us to see each other anew. Sounded daring, even a bit absurd. Could games really help us rediscover the passion that felt like a distant memory? But the more she spoke, the more the idea began to take shape in my mind. Each exercise, she said, would push us just slightly out of our comfort zones, nudging us to find fresh perspectives on each other. I felt a flicker of excitement, a hint of adventure I hadn't felt in ages. And though Ben seemed skeptical at first, I caught a glimmer of intrigue in his eyes, a spark that hinted he might be just as curious as I was. Our first challenge was surprisingly simple yet unexpectedly powerful. We were to imagine meeting each other for the first time, as strangers drawn together by a quiet intrigue, each of us embodying a different persona. The goal was to shed our everyday selves and look at each other with new eyes. It sounded silly on the surface, but there was something thrilling in the idea of letting go of who we usually were, stepping into the unknown. The night arrived, and I felt an unexpected flutter of nerves as I got ready. Choosing my outfit carefully, I became hyper-aware of each detail. The smooth fabric against my skin, the way the scent of my perfume seemed to heighten my senses. I felt anticipation tingling through me, as if I were about to embark on a secret adventure. When I finally walked into the living room, dressed as a stranger, I saw Ben look at me with a mixture of surprise and fascination, his gaze lingering in a way I hadn't seen in years. We slipped into our roles, and the air between us shifted, charged with a new, playful tension. Suddenly, each glance, each touch, felt different, infused with a freshness, a curiosity that took me back to those early days when everything was still undiscovered. For the first time in a long time, I felt like someone he wanted to know, to unravel. And as I looked into his eyes, I realized I wanted the same. Our first attempt at Helen's role-playing exercises felt like stepping into unfamiliar, yet thrilling territory. We decided on something simple. I would visit Ben's office as a mysterious stranger. There was a shiver of excitement as I prepared for it, slipping into the role and embracing the persona I'd created. As I walked through the door, my pulse quickened, and every small detail took on new significance. The faint hum of the air conditioner, the steady beat of my heels against the floor, the way his eyes flickered up to meet mine with a hint of surprise. For a moment, it was just us, locked in an unspoken understanding. He looked at me differently, as though truly seeing me for the first time in years, his gaze holding a mix of intrigue and warmth. The weight of our usual labels, wife, husband, seemed to fall away, replaced by the magnetic pull between two people exploring each other's presence anew. It was intoxicating, this sense of rediscovery. As we settled into the scene, I felt a spark ignite, a playfulness that made me bold, teasing him with subtle glances and carefully chosen words. He responded in kind, his laughter and gentle touches infusing the air with an electric tension. There was no rush, no routine. Every gesture, every look held weight, as if we were savoring each moment, rediscovering what it meant to connect deeply, without the scripts of daily life. In those few stolen moments, I felt free, alive with an energy I hadn't felt in so long. The mundane setting of his office became our stage, each interaction building the suspense, the anticipation. By the time I left, we were both smiling, carrying a shared sense of excitement that lingered between us like a secret. Even after we returned to our normal routines, that quiet thrill stayed with us, a reminder of what lay beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. After our first role-playing experience, Ben surprised me with an unexpected proposition. He suggested we take things a step further, this time in public. His idea: to meet for dinner as strangers, each of us playing a role, pretending we were lovers with a shared, secretive connection. The idea was daring, exhilarating, and I felt a rush of excitement, tempered with just enough nerves to make my heart race. But his enthusiasm was infectious, and I couldn't resist the allure of stepping into this forbidden dynamic, where every glance, every subtle touch would carry a hidden meaning. We chose a dimly lit, intimate restaurant where we wouldn't be recognized. I arrived first, taking my time to slip into character, feeling the anticipation build as I waited. My fingers traced the edge of my glass, my gaze flicking to the door with a thrill of excitement. And when he finally appeared, dressed sharply, his eyes scanning the room until they met mine, it was as if a spark ignited between us. In that moment, we were no longer husband and wife. We were two strangers sharing a secret. As he sat across from me, we exchanged polite, casual words, but beneath the surface, every word was loaded with tension. His hand brushed mine, lingering just a little too long, and I felt a rush, a tingle that made me feel more alive than I had in years. His gaze held mine, dark and intent, as if he were discovering me anew, and each look he gave me felt like a promise, a dare. In the public setting, every stolen glance, every slight brush of his fingers against mine held a delicious thrill, a shared secret only we understood. It was exhilarating to know that anyone watching would see us as a couple flirting quietly, unaware of the depth of the connection between us. The tension between us simmered, building with each moment, each laugh, until even the simplest gestures carried a sense of intimacy that left my pulse racing. That night, I realized how much we could still discover in each other, how much was still left unexplored. By the time we left, my mind was swirling, my senses heightened. As we walked side by side, I felt a new sense of closeness, a thrilling reminder of the excitement we'd found in each other. The night had opened a door, one I was eager to keep exploring. During one of our sessions, Ben surprised me with a revelation, something he'd been carrying for a while but had never had the courage to say aloud. With a cautious, almost hesitant expression, he admitted he'd been curious about exploring a shared fantasy, one that involved bringing others into our experience. The idea took me by surprise, leaving me speechless for a moment as a swirl of emotions flooded over me. A mix of shock, nervousness, and a flicker of curiosity I couldn't quite ignore. It was a proposition that opened a door I hadn't considered, one that would require a new level of trust between us. Seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, I realized how deeply he trusted me with this secret, how much he valued my openness. It wasn't just about a whim or a fleeting fantasy. This was an opportunity to delve into desires we'd kept hidden, an invitation to connect in a way that went beyond the familiar. As I looked at him, I could feel the weight of his sincerity, his hope that I would at least try to understand. With a hesitant smile, I told him I'd think about it. Over the next few days, I found myself revisiting the idea, exploring my own boundaries and confronting emotions I hadn't anticipated. There was a thrill in the thought, a quiet excitement that stirred a part of me I'd barely acknowledged. Could I embrace this side of us, this deeper layer of exploration? It wasn't something I took lightly, but the thought of opening ourselves to something entirely new held a certain allure, a chance to push past our comfort zones and truly understand each other's desires. When we finally decided to take that step, the experience was unlike anything I'd imagined. It was raw and vulnerable, a new level of trust that felt almost sacred. It wasn't just about excitement. It was about seeing each other without pretense, connecting on a level that words couldn't fully capture. In the quiet moments that followed, I felt a sense of relief, a release that went beyond the physical. It was as if we had reached a deeper understanding, a mutual respect that brought us even closer. That night, as we lay side by side, I felt a profound sense of closeness, a certainty that we'd unlocked something powerful together. It was a new chapter, one built on openness and trust, a commitment to exploring each other's needs in ways we hadn't dared to before. And with that realization, I knew we were ready for whatever came next, bound together by a renewed, unbreakable connection. In the weeks that followed, I found myself reflecting on everything Ben and I had been through, the moments of laughter, the quiet confessions, the boundaries we had gently pushed together. Each session with Helen had become a place where we could openly explore our emotions, and sometimes even shed a few tears as we processed the ways we had changed. Therapy had started as a way to fix things, but it had become so much more. It was a journey that uncovered layers of resilience and showed us how to find each other again in the smallest, most meaningful gestures. One afternoon, as we talked with Helen about the impact of these shared experiences, I confessed how deeply it had all transformed us. Sitting there, I felt a newfound admiration for Ben, a sense of awe even. Hearing him describe how he felt more connected and in tune with me, his voice soft with sincerity, made me realize how much we had grown. There was a lightness in him, an openness I hadn't seen in years, and it felt like a reward for everything we had worked through together. Helen, perceptive as always, helped us understand that what we had gained was more than intimacy. It was an unspoken renewal of our commitment to each other. Every look, every touch, every small gesture had taken on new significance, a way of saying, "I see you and I choose you." There was a satisfaction in this quiet rediscovery, a sense that our relationship had not only survived but had evolved into something richer and more intentional. As we walked out of the session that day, I felt a wave of gratitude for the journey we had taken. We were no longer the couple merely enduring the passage of time together. We were two people who had chosen to dig deep, to fight for something real. With every passing day, I could see a future filled with new possibilities, a future where we continued to explore and rediscover each other, building a bond that felt unbreakable. In that moment, I knew that whatever lay ahead, we were ready to face it, stronger and more in love than ever. Our connection wasn't just rekindled, it was revitalized, woven through with trust, openness, and a quiet promise to always keep seeing each other with fresh eyes. With our anniversary approaching, I felt an urge to make it truly special, a celebration not just of the years we'd shared, but of everything we'd fought to rekindle. The last few months had been a journey of rediscovery, of uncovering parts of ourselves we'd long forgotten. I wanted to create an evening that would capture all of that, a night filled with moments that would remind us of the passion and connection we'd worked so hard to reclaim. As I began planning, I imagined every detail with care. I chose a secluded spot, away from the usual places we frequented, somewhere intimate and filled with charm. I prepared small surprises, each one representing a piece of our journey, a memory of laughter, a token of the trust we'd rebuilt, a subtle hint of the new dreams we now shared. I wanted each touch to feel like a whispered reminder of how far we had come and how much more there was still to discover. When the evening finally arrived, I felt a thrill of anticipation. I dressed in something that made me feel beautiful, a dress I knew would catch his eye and make him look at me with that same spark he'd shown during our recent adventures. The scent of my perfume lingered in the air as I finished the final touches, each moment adding to the quiet excitement building inside me. When he walked in, I saw the flicker of surprise in his eyes, followed by that familiar warm smile that now felt even deeper, more meaningful. We spent the evening lost in each other, sharing stories, laughter, and quiet moments that needed no words. With each glance, each gentle touch, it felt as though we were weaving together a new chapter, a promise to keep choosing each other again and again. As the night wore on, I realized that what we'd found wasn't just the thrill of rediscovery. It was the comfort of knowing we were truly seen and cherished. We had fought for this love layer by layer, and it was now stronger, more resilient, and beautifully flawed. In that quiet, candlelit room, we celebrated not only the past but the future, a shared commitment to never let the light fade again. As we held each other close, I couldn't help but smile, feeling the fullness of everything we'd built together, the satisfaction of knowing that we'd dared to find each other all over again. And as the night drew to a close, I knew that this was only the beginning of a journey we'd continue to cherish, side by side, hearts wide open for whatever lay ahead.
Keep watching our stories by clicking on one of the videos that appear on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be alerted about new videos. See you next time.